The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware! Your host, Jonathan Ho!
Sinistar, a sinister pile of pixels. That's you. And we're with Jordi de Paco, who made, whoa, I've got a sudden yelling at me happening. You made a sinister pile of pixels called Gods Will Be Watching. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty neat. And right now, you're working on another video game, like this second. It's probably in your mind. You're probably thinking, why am I talking to this guy? Because I'm trying to make a video game. Right now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I have to make a game in less than 72 hours for the Ludum Dare competition. And I tried to make a Metroidvania, so I didn't have much sleep right now and didn't have a lot of food, so I'm I could be a really strange interview right now. And on top of that, my English is not quite good, so you pick a good one to have a chat.
We would want nothing less than an unusual, uncommon interview on this show. So tell us, what is this game you're working on right now? Metroidvania, they are often, by design, they have to be a certain breadth of scope. There's very few like short Metroidvanias because pacing-wise, they have to involve certain progressions and exploration. So, geez, what are you doing?
Well, the theme for this Ludum Dare edition was an unconventional weapon. So I made a thing about some guys who want to get out of a planet, and you are this guy who has to go beneath the surface and just collect a lot of ores and materials to build this ship. And the only thing you have to fight against the monsters that crawl the dungeons is your working tools, and that includes some kind of a strange hook and a power drill and something I call the bio driver, who is basically something you pop into a block and it starts moving. So if you launch it against an enemy, you swap with the enemy. It's quite hard to explain right now with words because
you're explaining very well. It sounds like you have to use tools that you wouldn't normally use as weapons.
Exactly.
And they have various surprising effects. Is this an idea you've been thinking about for a little while, and this was just the opportunity to push it out, or it all just came to you this weekend?
I always try to go to the jams without any idea, so I spend the Monday, the morning of Saturday thinking about the idea, about 6 hours, and then started working on it, and it's been like that for 48 hours right now, I think.
How much sleep have you gotten?
I think like 4 hours maybe in the whole weekend, but that's okay. I like it.
I like it too. I like that you like it. Wow. And what are you doing this game alone, or is it with a group or with at least one other person helping you?
Yeah, I'm making it with part of the Deconstructeam. Marina is helping me with the art, and Pablo, also known as Fingerspeed, is making the music. So it's 3 people working on the game right now. And I like it like that because if one person handles the art, one person handles the music, and one person handles the game design and programming, there's not a lot of communication between us, so you don't last much time speaking on how to make things and what we want to make. So it's like do whatever art you want to do whatever music you feel to like doing, and let's put that together and feel the magic of the game jam. That's how we roll this thing.
That's awesome. And Gods Will Be Watching. Did that start as a Ludum Dare game jam as well?
Yeah, Totally Watching was a Ludum Dare game too, and it came from Ludum Dare, which theme was minimalism. So I tried to make this kind of narrative experience which happened only in one shot, and that was the main idea. Actually, it became the idea like a puzzle, just managing your resources and trying to solve the riddle. And actually, the way I designed God's Really Watching wasn't intentionally like moral dilemmas and something like that. I was a little more psychopathic, like, oh shit, this puzzle doesn't make sense. I have to put a dog so I have emergency food. That was my thinking, but then the people was like, oh my god, she's a genius. The moral dilemmas about the dog and something like that. And it was like, I was short on food. That was that.
So it accidentally became a game about how evil, or at least how awful are you going to be? Evil maybe is a little strong, but awful I think is on point for how bad you are
Yeah,
and bad you feel in that game.
I like to think not as evil, but how how much pragmatic can you be?
Pragmatic in terms of how bad will it be if you don't do something awful, I guess is kind of the theme of it.
Yeah, it's like, what do you like most, dying or killing a dog? It's
Uh-huh.
that kind of
Yeah.
decisions.
Sure. And when you were working on the original Ludum Dare version of that, and that we had one of the co-creators of Ludum Dare on the show like a year ago. You should go back and watch it. His
Nice.
name's Mike. Very nice guy.
Yeah, I know.
Great guy. So was it the same team then? You said Pablo on music, Marina on art. Is that right?
Yeah, we were the same. We were actually two more people. There was Jonathan and also Jorge. There were that time where we were five people working on the game.
Uh-huh.
So we could work a little more on the art. Actually, there were three artists, one musician, and myself. So there was a lot of art which didn't include in the game because it was three against one. So that's
Oh.
how it was. But yeah, actually, when you kill the people, there were some that they buried them, and there were the art for the tombs were made, like they buried on the ground and put a cross on the field. But it was like too much work for me on a weekend.
Oh, sure. So, and you've pared it down since then. And what you said before, if I caught it right, when each person is just handling their own thing, and you trust each other, then you can just go with it. Are you encouraging them as they go? Or are they sending you art and you're being like beautiful and sending you music and you're like, yes, more of that? Or are you just kind of keeping your head down and going forward with what you're doing?
No, we talk about like every 30 minutes. It's not like opaque working.
Sure.
And I first use the whole morning to design the game, and then I spend like 50 minutes or 1 hour with each other, speaking about what I want to put in the game, what feelings, what I want make the players feel. So after my instructions, I don't go into much detail into the work. It's like I want to achieve that. Use the best technique you think you can do for achieve the objective. So I don't know. There are also some diversifiers when creating because before starting the game jam, for example, Pablo told me that he wanted to try to make the music with an acoustic guitar. So I designed the game with the feel of an acoustic guitar, and it was a fun diversifier because it's not like a genre or any kind of mechanic. It was like make a game feel like an acoustic guitar, and it was quite fun to design like that.
How the heck do you make a game feel like an acoustic guitar? Sounds great.
Yeah, I don't know. The game is. I made the game about miners and the feeling of old miners and Far West, something like that.
Huh. So it has that kind of rustic, old-fashioned, organic feeling to it, even though I'm assuming it is pixel art as well.
Yeah,
You think Marina, right? Marina?
yeah, Marina.
Is she also trying to make it feel kind of acoustic in its looks?
Yeah, I mean, she's dressing the people like working people. They are not heroes. They like with working suits, this kind of tools. They look like mechanics, not like heroes. So it's like this kind of old vinyl feel in everything.
Sure. And her art on God's Will Be Watching made me feel not like I was looking at an old-fashioned game, not like I was looking at an old game, but looking like I was. It felt like a really handmade, even though it's pixels, even though it's little squares. It felt like something I could touch and feel and feel bad by. She seems to have that style down.
Yeah, that part came from a decision because I tried to make the game without any user interface. That was the kind of challenge I wanted to make to not break the sensation of immersion within the game. So in order to communicate what the characters were feeling or their status, we decided to go with this kind of long characters because usually in a platforming game you have more compact characters because they have to move around, they have to interact with a lot of things. But here there wasn't this kind of problem of collisions, and so we went for this kind of long people, and they have no face, but they have a good amount of extremities to tell a lot of things, like if they're sad, if they're proud, or if they aggressive. So that kind of decision to try to avoid the user interface end up in this kind of expressive, tall characters that wouldn't fit on a normal game.
Huh, makes a lot of sense. And for people who don't know what Gods Will Be Watching is, how would you describe the game to them?
Yeah. Well, Got to Be Watching is a point and click model puzzler, something like that. It's some sort of dramatic series of dramatic puzzles where you have to face difficult situations, like handling a hostage situation or enduring 20 days of torture or experimenting with vaccines on the bodies of your partners. It's some kind of fuck up situation simulator or something like that.
Sounds about right. And you try your best, or at least from how I've played it, you try to pick the lesser of two evils decisions as often as you can. But it almost feels like I'm being punished for making those decisions a lot of the time. Sometimes the harder you try to be good, the worse everything goes.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be good, you have to be really good. And I mean, being really good as a resource manager. It's like it not only counts if you want to, if you are good-hearted. You, if you want to go through the right way, you have to know what you're doing. And it's like I'm going to be fair and I'm going to save everybody because I can, not because I choose to. It's not like here you are the red decisions and the blue decisions. Are you going to be good or bad? And it was like if you want to go saving everybody, you have to go full through it. You have to be a real hero. And if not, it's just as easy as killing one of your partners and eating him. I mean, I'm not forcing you to save everybody. It's like,
Yeah. It doesn't matter necessarily if you're of good character. You have to be good at what you're doing. You have to be a real master. It almost feels like an interpersonal surgery simulator. Like if a surgeon goes in and he's like, well, I'm going to have to hurt this person because I'm going to cut them. So it's not like I'm going to do absolutely no harm. Cutting into them and I'm in their organs and I'm messing around, you have to make hard decisions in there. And it doesn't necessarily matter if you have the best intentions, because the surgeon can have the best intentions, but if he's slow or sloppy, the person is still going to end up badly hurt or even killed. Was that one of the inspirations for the game? What inspired you to make this hard times simulator?
Well, for the vibe of the game, it involves a lot of reverse engineering because, like I said, my first idea was to make a little and cute puzzle game about surviving, and it happened like that. It caused an impression much greater than I expected to people. So what I did was to use the feedback from the press and use the feedback from a lot of players who uploaded their gameplays to YouTube of the original prototype. So I studied how they played and what they were they expecting, what the game made them feel, and tried to empower that feeling in the main game. So when I started making Gotuli Watching, the first thing I did was the first page of the design notebook of Gotuli Watching is like 12 keywords, like against all odds, dramatic, tough choices, and I put this kind of series of keywords, and I use them to put every idea I had for the game through them. If an idea didn't make the 12 of them, it didn't cut the thing. So what we did was like a brainstorming about fuck up situations and see which one of them made the requirements to be in this kind of 12 words of feeling. And that's how we came up with the structure of the game. We put out some ideas like a political meeting where you had to decide like the fate of a nation or something like that, but it didn't feel as intense because you weren't seeing the people who you shot or you killed. It felt like they're just numbers. It's just people around there. I took a decision and the country goes to hell. It doesn't matter. So yeah, we basically try to empower that kind of discussions, because something we liked a lot from the original prototype was that it caused a lot of conversation on the internet. If you went to a game forum or social network or something, it was like how to beat God Really Watching. First day you have to kill the dog, and the next 15 pages were about not killing the dog or killing the dog. So that was amazing, and we wanted to empower that kind of conversation.
Huh. And how do you feel the game has been received thus far? It's been out, I think, since last year, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, we
Uh,
released it on July last year.
oh, right. So a lot of people have said that I've talked to anyway that the game makes them feel bad and therefore the game is bad, which doesn't totally add up to me, but it's a fair expression. Some people say the game is good, but they've said, oh, I can just tell this is trying to make me feel bad, and therefore I've like seen through it. So it's not a bad game, but it's not as good as if it like tricked me completely. And other people say like this is the best game. This is what games ought to do. This game caused me to get to know myself and chew on things in a way, chew on things psychologically in a way that no other game did last year, and everyone should be talking about it. I've seen this huge range of responses. How has that been for you to absorb?
It's been really, really hard because on the first days after the release, there wasn't like the people appreciating the game. The first impression was people just hating us and insulting us a lot. We were receiving mails like telling us to kill ourselves, and they're going to come after us and kill us. They asked us if we had cerebral paralysis or something like that. It was really, really harsh.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
people like taking their time to write a long mail about like congratulations, you did a game that was not fun, you were a fucking idiot, and a really long mail and well written. So after 2 or 3 hours after the release, after doing that, I just went to the street and I was wandering like about 2 or 3 in the morning under a lamplight looking the traffic, and it was like my life is over. I blown my entire career. I had a shot in making games and now it's over. But miraculously, over time, there were been a lot of people who actually enjoyed the game and really appreciated it. And it was like the dust settling, because if you look on Steam, the first day we got to 80% of negative reviews. It was
Really?
awful. Yeah, really. And but there was a lot of people who was just like 10 minutes of play, 20 minutes of play. It was really short time span, and it was like the people who got rejected for the really tough difficulty and the kind of bad feelings, and they were expecting to have a great time, and it was a fuck up game. But then after that, a few weeks after that, it happened that the people who were enjoying the game weren't talking about it; they were playing it. So there started to appear a lot of reviews about 20 hours of play, 15 hours of play, 50 hours of play, and we got to 70% positive reviews. I think it's above that right now, and it really surprised me because I thought I was done, and actually I didn't feel right. I didn't feel good. Didn't compensate for all the insults, the people who enjoyed the game. But I took the whole August as a holiday, it's like not touching the internet, just being away, trying to get my head clean. And when I went back, something great, something fantastic happened. There was a lot of fan art on the internet. We found that, like coming back and seeing a lot of drawings of your characters making with each other, fucking with each other. There was a lot of sexual content fan art, but I like that. I felt really flattered. Like, look what they made them feel, what my characters make that people feel. And I got in touch with this fantastic community of players of Totally Watching, and I was really happy that this is not like a mainstream game, but found they target players and they found something different in gaming they didn't find before. And I've been getting really nice mails that compensate for the thing. Like, thank you for making a game like this. I had a great time. It made me thought. And in hindsight, I think it was a really great experience, even the bad parts. I think I grew a lot as a developer after making Constantly Watching.
Makes a lot of sense, though. I can't help but be sad to hear that you had that initially painful response where people, it sounds like people felt so bad playing your game that they wanted to make you feel just as bad. They wanted you to like share in their badness, which speaks to how much you made them feel in the first place. Goes back to this ongoing talk people have about video game reviews in general, specifically aggregate reviews like Metacritic, where you see a game get a 7 and you're like, oh, I guess it's like a little bit better than average. But then you look at each review and it's because some people gave it a 10 and then a lot of people gave it like a 2 or a 3, and then it turns out it's because it gives people an extreme response on either side, which is anything but average. If you can make people feel like they're going to throw up and they hate you, or like they want to have sex with your characters, or and or be your characters having, I mean, those are complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're both very, very intense. It's anything but an average response.
Yeah, totally.
Have you heard anybody say, yeah, it was okay, it's pretty good, but it doesn't really make me feel anything either way?
Actually, I didn't. I found a really intense hate, but also really high appreciation. I didn't see someone like saying, I had fun, and just like that.
Yeah, so anything but apathy has been the response you've gotten. To dial it back a little bit, you said that you were thinking about just quitting game development because the first, and I as I understand it, the game was in development for a little while, so I can imagine that for this culmination of
it was 15 months of development.
Really? Wow. Yeah. So we'll get to that in a little bit, because I want to hear about how you survived that whole process. 15 months working on a game is not easy. But when did you first get started in the game development? How did you get involved in this thing?
I started about 3 years ago now, I think. And it was like a crazy decision because I was really tired. I was a web developer before making games. And I got stuck in works I didn't seem to improve myself or give something personal growth for me. And it was like I got to a point like I made a drastic question to myself, like, is this how I want to die? Like going to the office and then going back to the sofa and every day like this, because if I don't do nothing, I'm going to be like this for all my life. And I decided to make games. It was something I always wanted to make, but I didn't choose that career because a long time ago it was like impossible to make games. And suddenly I realized, hey, there are a lot of new tools that are really accessible for making games. I don't have to be an engineer now for making games. So I gave it a shot. And instead of going for a really big game, because I had some bitter experience in the experiences in the past, like wanted to make a game, got a lot of people, like 20 people, we're going to make the game for dreams, and to end up doing nothing. So I was like, I'm not going to ask for help to anyone. I'm going to go solo and do really, really, really small games. If I cannot do that, I can't make a big game. So I started making a little game and then going bigger and bigger in scope. I started joining competition as Ludum, as this one I am right now, losing my time here. So I felt it really rewarding just to make a little game, release it, get the feedback, realize that you don't know how to amuse other people, you don't know how to produce fun, because it was like when you get into making games, it's like I need to know how to program, or I need to know how to make art, but you never think about the game design, that it's like the biggest challenge of making games. So I started reading reading books about game design, following interesting developers, getting myself of that kind of experience and knowledge. And after a while, I started realizing that a small group of people were enjoying my games. And it was like, hey, this is some response. I'm going somewhere here. So I asked for help to Marina, which is my girlfriend, and she has a degree in fine arts. So I treat her into helping me making games, and then treat her friends into making games with me. And after, I think, 7 or 8 games without sound, Pablo found us on the internet and he was like, what the fuck? Your games don't have sound or music. And out of mercy, he joined us and started making the music for our games. And I was for about a year and a half or 2 years just making small games, never thinking about going commercial or something like that. It's like there's still a lot of way to do. There's still a lot of doing before being able to making a big game. And before I was ready for it, Godly Watching happened. Actually, when I finished Godly Watching, it was like, okay, another, let's do the next game. And I had to stop and like, hey, what's happening on the internet? There's a lot of people talking about the game. We were getting hundreds of thousands. I don't know, very big number of players. I don't know how to say that in English.
That's okay.
And it was like, hey, this seems like we hit a button here. It's something. Let's try the concept. Let's try if it works, like going for a crowdfunding for the idea. So we released the crowdfunding. We asked for 8,000 euros, a really small amount because we were working like really poor ways. Like most of us didn't have personal computers. They have to borrow the equipment. We didn't have tablets or something to make the game for that devices. We didn't have licenses to make a game. So it was like, okay, 8,000 euros just to have our own equipment. And it got 20,000 euros and a deal with Evolver Digital. So it was like, okay, this is working. And after that, it was like 15 horrible months making Godly Watching.
Did you?
Yeah.
So you quit your web design job at this point?
Yeah. Actually, I quit it before making Godly Watching. It was nice because before Godly Watching, my little games, like I made like 6 or 7 little games, but it allowed me to get a job as a game designer. I was working as a game designer. I was working like that for 9 months, but it was a really shitty company making Facebook games to raise money from ludopads. So when Godly Watching happened, I was working there, and I immediately quit the job. Like, fuck you, I'm going to make my own games now. And it was like that happened until today.
Sure. So again, before we go into the development process of Gods Will Be Watching, because I'm very curious about that, but I do want to hear about what these little games were that you made while you were working. I mean, that sounds like a time when you felt like anything is possible, but there was no pressure to actually do anything. You had a job making crappy Facebook games. You could complain about it and be like, but I know I'm capable of more than this. But you didn't actually have to do more than that yet. So the pressure wasn't on. You know that you could do it, but you didn't have to. And you got to make these fun little games, which I want to hear more about. What were those like?
Yeah, I really miss those times. It was like I was a lot of time expecting the moment to become like I am right now. Like I'm post indie right now. I have money. I can make a living of my games. But I dare to say that I was happier before making Godly Watching. It was like no one was looking at me. I was alone in my room making the games I wanted. I could fail the way I like it. And these little games were experiments because I wanted to make things that didn't weren't made before because being myself and I'm not a really skilled programmer, so if I cannot compete technically with other people, I cannot make games that already exist better than the people who does that games. I'm going to make something silly and different. I'm going to fail a lot of times until I find something who works for me. And it happened to that was the narrative experiences. And actually, I don't like them as a player. I like to mash buttons and kill things, but it was like the things I like playing are not the same. I'm skilled at making. And I made H's of Irving. It was a freelance torturer simulator. Like you were a torturer and you got jobs and you got the info about the target. So you went there and got the info out. Like you can decide if talk to the target or hit the target, and you can use the money you earn from torturing people to buy weapons or to learn dialogue methods like being sympathetic, threatening, something like that. And that was the first game that hit the press, and it was like I called someone's attention. And after that, I made a steampunk hacking simulator game that happened in a room of the action, and you were just a hacker, and the people came from outside, like telling you the news. The resistance is fighting, we're going to win, and you just go into your computer and do the quests. And that got some quite a small group of fans, and it was nice to get this reaction. And with Godly Watching, it was like, okay, this is my genre because there are a lot of people who are enjoying Godly Watching, and I'm making a living out of it. So this time of making games, I made 12 games before Godly Watching. Was like the way of discovering myself, what kind of games I'm good at making. That it's something important too. Um, and yeah, I like that process a lot. Actually, after finishing the DLC of Godly Watching, what we are about to release in a while, I want to go back to that life. Like I have money now, I don't have the pressure of keeping myself alive, so I want to use that money to just be creatively free and make some things that can fail and just release them. And it's like okay, fail, but I don't care because I'm making these games because that's what I want. And I really want to go back to that before just thinking in the next commercial project.
Mhm. Yeah, it makes sense. It's funny. I was talking with Edmund McMillan the other day of Team Meat and many other things, and he was talking to me about how when he created Binding of Isaac, it was a way of trying to reject the experience he had working on Super Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy was like 2 years. He had to go to surgery. It was like life or death. It was this project that had blossomed into this whole thing that and he no longer was making the game. The game was like making him. His life was there to serve the game, not the other way around. So with Binding of Isaac, he's like, I'm going to make a little game. I'm going to make it in a few weeks. It's going to completely fail. I'm going to make it about a naked baby. Nobody's going to want to be a naked baby in a video game. And now it's like sold 5 million copies or something across the original version and the remakes. And now they're making yet another remake. So even in his earnest attempt to do a small game nobody would care about because there'd be no pressure involved, it's still just turned into this massive thing. You may try to go back to the time when you were just making little games for yourself, but they may end up blowing up, and then you're going to have all this pressure and whatnot. You never know.
Yeah, it's like a course. You cannot make games that fail.
After you get a certain level of just kind of design savvy and skill, and Edmund, of course, has been making games for a long time, and at this point, you've made quite a few already under your belt. So you probably have developed a sort of design wisdom where it might be hard for you to make a game that nobody would like at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like the most terrific question after making Go to the Watching is what's next. It's like I cannot wait to make another game, but it also terrifies me not being able to find something that is as successful as Go to the Watching. So that's kind of one of the reasons too, because I want to hide into making small games for a while and not having that kind of pressure.
Sure.
But I'm quite happy because the Metroidvania I'm making right now, it was something I attempted a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, and it was a game that was about 10 days for making a game. And I tried to make a Castlevania Metroidvania, and totally failed. And now this one is just 72 hours, and in the first 48 hours, it has already more content and more fun, it's more polished than the other one. So it's been great to repeat the same attempt to feel the progress, the wait for experience a long time. It's been a great experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. It sounds like you're pretty confident that the game will get finished in some form or another, and then if you choose to, you can always polish it up from there on in. It's already kind of a real game, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't become too successful because I have already too much old ideas which have to to become greater games. It's like I've been working on the design of too many remakes already because there are some publishers already interested in other games I made in the past, and it's like don't want to make the same games again and again. I want to because it feels something like it's an accident. It's not my own merit. Like Ghostly Watching was an accident, was a cool accident, and I made it bigger. And now we have these other ideas from game jams that were just like, okay, let's try something we don't have time to think, just let's go for it. And they work. And it's like I don't feel as proud as sitting down and thinking a game, and it's like I'm going to make a game, a full project, and I'm going to design it with this, and I'm going to be intelligent about some decisions. And until now, it's like every time I did that, I failed. And the things I do without thinking a lot of them, they are more fun. And it's something that bugs me because I want to be able to design a game without pressure or without the kind of magic of the game jams. But that's the way it is, I guess.
Interesting. I wonder, do you think there's something about the way you approach game design when you have more time and you can think to yourself, well, I want to do something that's going to go over well. When you're in that frame of mind, do you somehow outsmart yourself or trick yourself or somehow trip over yourself and not get there in the same way?
Yeah, I think it's something like that because recently I was trying to make a game, a little game. I was like, I want to face a little project that I can manage and maybe make in a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to attempt something like Daniel Linson's Sandstorm. I don't know if you know that game.
I think so.
It's a game about being in a sandstorm, and it's all like two colors, sepia colors, and you wander through a desert. And it was a really small game, but with a lot of feeling like that. And I wanted to make something of that scope. But I spent weeks thinking about what to do, and every time I started thinking on something, it started growing and growing. So I documented everything, put a pin, and put it on the wall. Like, okay, this one for the future. And it's like every time I sit, I try to think something that grows much bigger than I want.
Mm.
Actually, there was an idea about a Metroidvania I wanted to make, and I end up not making it because it seemed too much. But now in this game jam, I'm making a Metroidvania, and I think it has even more elements than the one I was thinking of. But it's like, since I'm not thinking about the pressure, about that I have to polish a lot of things, that I have to put a lot of sense into the game, it's like, okay, fuck it, let's just make the game. And I think it's a handicap to have infinite time to make something. It
Mm-hmm.
really is.
Sure. It sounds like the more limitations you put on yourself, the more you can focus and just get stuff done, like how you made the list of 12 keywords that
Yeah.
you had to focus on for Gods Will Be Watching. Did you have an element of keywords for the game you're working on right now, the Metroidvania?
Well, instead of that, since the theme was unconventional weapon, what I did was what kind of silly weapons I design that are fun enough to use and I can do in just a weekend. So I designed three of them, which I was proud of, and it was fun how they interacted against each other. So the whole game is based around that, and then I thought of what kind of context fits this kind of tool. So I went with diggers in the mine or something like that, and every decision of the game is built on top of the three tools, and plus the filter of the acoustic feeling that Pablo gave me. So that's
Mm.
like the two pillars of the game I'm making right now.
Sure. Acoustic feeling and those three tools.
Yeah.
Huh. Sounds really exciting. When you were going through the 15 months of Gods Will Be Watching development,
Yeah.
was there an arc to it in terms of starting off like optimistic and excited and yes, this game is so popular already, we can do it, to like then dipping into like, are we ever going to finish this? Like, tell me about how that arc went for you.
Well, it was all the thing I recall is pain right now, but I recall some moments on the past where it was really fun and exciting to begin. I think the game design part was the most fun because I spent the 2 months designing the game, and I tried not to spend a single day inside home. It was like I'm going to design a game, going under the sun and have breakfast and draw things. And it was really 2 happy months. And after that, it was like 15 months inside my room coding the whole game. And yeah, I was very optimistic because I made a game plan production for about 6 months because my logic was like, if I made the original puzzle in just a weekend, if I put a lot of effort into it, it might take me like a month to make each stage. But it wasn't like that. Making a big game is really pain in the ass because you have to take a lot of things that are not fun. Mostly menus and handling volume and saving the game and being an actual game that you can boot and you keep playing it and you spend a lot of months into really boring shit that it's not making games. If I'm ever able myself in the future, I'm going to hire someone like I need some specialist in menus and boring shit to make these things because I don't want to make them.
And how was there ever a time when you thought, I can't stand this? My discomfort level is so bad that I can't go on. And before you give the answer to that, I can't help but see the parallels between like making the game and playing the game. When you're making it, you're like, I feel terrible. This is so much. I either have to do this crappy job or this crappy job. Like, what am I gonna? And then when you play the game, you get the similar experience. So a lot of people give up with your game. Did you ever feel like you were going to give up on making it?
I felt like that several times. I mean, I never thought it like actually doing it, like I was in the verge of doing it, but I thought so many times about like why I'm not happy making this game. Like this is what I wanted to, what I was expecting all my life. I want to make games. I'm finally making a game, but I'm not happy. What the hell is happening? And this is really boring and really harsh. And I end up a lot of nights crying in the bed, like I'm not happy. I don't want to make games anymore. This is pure shit. But then woke up in the morning and started making it again because it's like I have to make the game. I have to make this.
Well, what was it that drove you to keep going through it? Because a lot of people would have just given up, I'm sure.
Well, I guess that being a team helps because you're not just doing it for yourself. It's like if I fail on this, for other people who are hoping like making a living out of this, I'm going to fail them and they're going to go back to where they were. So that keeps you going. I guess that being in a team is important. But also for myself, I kind of expected. I knew that it was a reward at the end of all of this, so that kept me going. But it was really really hard, and I really think I'm going to try to have fun in the future making games more like I did with Totally Watching, because it was also the pressure of this game is not fun, it's not going to work, I'm going to fail. Even if I finish this, it's going to fail. Because one thing that happens with Totally Watching is that I don't like it myself. I don't like playing Totally Watching. It's really boring to me. I like Super Time Force. I like to play Pro Force or Hotline Miami or something like that. And it's really boring. I don't know why people play Totally Watching.
I definitely know that feeling. I don't think I've liked anything I've made, like period. Like maybe a little parts here and there, like, but that's about it. So yeah, so interesting that it was the pressure to not fail a larger group in a way, and hoping that something good happens at the end. Because again, very similar to Gods Will Be Watching. Like, why do people keep playing it, even though it makes them so uncomfortable? Oftentimes, it's because they're like, well, there's this whole world that I can do good in if I don't give up, and I'm going to be letting down the players in the world if I give up on them. And your own girlfriend on the team. And,
Yeah.
yeah. What has it been like to work with somebody you're romantically involved with on games?
Yeah, it's fun you mentioned like how similar Ghostly Watching is with making a game, because we were thinking about making the DLC about ourselves making the game and all the sacrifices we have to make. And the thing about being involved romantically with the with someone of the team,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was the only way that my relationship would work, because I'm like making games 24/7. I'm making games all the time, and all the thing I speak with her is about making games. And I don't think someone who doesn't make games or who doesn't is not involved in what I'm doing so deep could handle my kind of obsessive behavior and just being always about games. And when we play games, we talk about what this game does good or what it doesn't. And we also go to the cinema and play video games and just go for a walk. But it's like I can talk to her of everything that happens to me because it's also happening to her. So I think it's really, really ideal to me. I couldn't expect for a more healthier relationship in my case.
Huh, that's awesome. I'm still puzzled. So you are bored with Gods Will Be Watching? Like, do you dislike it, or are you just like numb to it? How would you explain that?
It's really hard because I don't like the game. If I didn't make the game, I think I wouldn't enjoy it. I would be the ones in the internet like this game is boring as shit. I don't like it. It's really painful. And that was really challenging because when I was making the game, I was trying to reproduce what made the people enjoy it. Like I really felt like a sociopath or psychopath. Like I don't understand people. I don't know why they like this, but I'm going to reproduce the feelings they express in the videos into this. And I was making the puzzles, and every time I made a design and implemented it, and it was with the art and the coding and sound effects, I look at it and it was like, this is not fun. What the hell am I making? And my partners were like, yeah, this is fun. I'm having fun. Look at this puzzle. I'm going to solve this. And it was like, I don't get it. This is not fun. Stop playing this shit. And that was really challenging, because if you have to stay 15 months making something you don't know, it's not about not liking it. It's just you are a game designer and you don't know if it's fun, if it's any fun. It's like, it's really, really hard.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Do you think it's in part because you're just so close to it? I mean, do you like other point and click games? Do you like the genre? Do you like, and you mentioned Hotline Miami, which to me feels like a close cousin to Gods Will Be Watching, because they both, again, have like, it's pixel art, but it's almost hand drawn. Can mean pixel art to me now, because we all know that when you see art like that, that was a human hand picking out each and every spot, as opposed to CGI, which sometimes the computers render a lot of that stuff for you. But it's got that same sort of organic yet technological feel to it. It's got, of course, the same like, ugh, I'm awful and everything's awful feel, but I can't wait to see what's going to happen next to it. So yeah, you've liked field ad games, but have you liked point and click games too?
Yeah, I like point and click games, and I like narrative experiences when I'm in the mood. It's like I enjoyed Gemini Rue, and I like Resonance. I like a lot of actually watch die games. I enjoyed them a lot. But it's like enjoying a good story. It's like it makes me feel the same I feel like watching a good movie or reading a good book. It was not the same kind of raw fun I feel when I shoot things or I'm skilled on something. It's a really different reward.
Sure.
And I'm sure I enjoy that kind of experiences, and I'm sure that I don't like totally watching that much because I know every single line, I wrote every single dialogue, and I know every single number behind the puzzle. It's like I look at the puzzle and I see a 6, a 17, an 8. I even see people suffering or something like that. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think
It's
that takes me away from the experience.
absolutely. It's the game developer's curse. I was chatting with I think it was Phil Fish on Twitter not that long ago. He said like there was some game he wanted to get made, like, you know, the Ghostbusters game or something, and somebody was like, "Make it, Phil. You can make games." He's like, "If I make it, I'll hate it, or at least I won't like enjoy it. I'll be numb to it because it'll be a part of me. You can't like get excited about your own face or your own, at least unless you're super narcissistic and think everything you do is amazing because you made it. You don't seem to be the most narcissistic fella in the world. So yeah, that's a curse in that you will never really truly love your own games, I bet.
Yeah, that's tough, I guess. I think if you cannot really enjoy your games, it's hard to like to measure how good it is. How do you measure that? In the amount of people who like it, in the amount of sales of the game. I don't really know how do you know that, because there are some games in the market who are not very popular, but you feel like they are masterpieces.
Mm.
And you really never know if that's a measure. I did a masterpiece because there are this group of fans who made me send me mails and do the fan art, and they like crazy about the game. We even got physical mail like these games made my brain tickle, and I feel so something I didn't experience before, and it's like, well, for this fella, it's a masterpiece. And I don't really know how to measure success in this kind of way, because I don't think that money is a way of measure success or how good a game is.
Sure.
It's really hard. It's really hard because I know why I like a game, if I like something, if I like some series of games, or I'm a fan of something, but I would never know if I did a good game.
Hmm. Yeah, son of a gun. But do you, when you see Gods Will Be Watching, do you think, well, given the resources we had, the time, the what have you that we had, we did what we wanted to do, like by my measure of, you know, this was who I was at that time, and I expressed who I was in that game, and that accurately expressed it. Do you feel like it succeeded in that way?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I'm happy with the story of constantly watching, but it's like I'm happy with like making a book or something. It doesn't satisfy my game developer part.
Mm-hmm.
Most like my storyteller part is some kind of different selves. Um, I don't really know. I feel great of having made that game, and uh, I think that being able to make a living out of it is just already a proof of that it was something
Sure.
good.
Absolutely. And has it been relatively financially successful? Did you make your money back and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, we were really on the verge when we were making the game because we thought we planned for a 6 month development, maybe 8 if things went wild, but it were 15.
Mm.
So we were really in a bad situation, and we had a spreadsheet where we put like I had a coffee, €1, and I know that can go out today. If my friends call me, I cannot go because I have this certain amount of money that if it doesn't long last enough to finish the game, I'm not going to survive. I have to go back to my parents' house or something like that, and I don't want to fail in that kind of way. It's really awful.
Mm.
But now it's great. I didn't have that amount of money in my life. I mean, for us, it means like being able to make games for about 2 years without worrying because I'm not changing my lifestyle. I didn't even buy a PlayStation 4. I don't have an next gen console. It was fun because the first thing we did when we got the money from the game, we went to the supermarket and got a full basket of food and good drinks, and it was like my fridge is not empty anymore. I don't have just to count the food I have. Oh, that was amazing. And we didn't change our lifestyle. I mean, I go often, more often, have fun, have beers with friends, but I didn't buy a car or something like that. And I have enough money to do that kind of things. But all that I want to do is make games, so I'm going to invest all of that into making games, and
Mm-hmm.
that is what is going to make me be happier in the future.
That's awesome. Sounds like you really, another measure of success, in my opinion, is when you know you really pushed yourself to the limit. Like you used up all of your money, you used up all of your food, you used up all of your goodwill, you used up all of your you like didn't waste any of the money or the stuff you had in your emotional bank. You spent it all. You know you put everything you had into that game, and thank goodness, and I'm happy to hear you're reaping the rewards from it. And you worked with Devolver on it, if I'm remembering
Yep, yeah,
correctly.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think that having Devolver publishing was part of the reason why it did pretty well?
Yeah, I think that without Devolver, we would be still making small games. I don't feel like we have the marketing power or like being that kind of presence. With Devolver, we've been able to be on first page on Steam and Google Games, Humble. It's not just our game; it's the new game by Devolver Digital. It's like a seal, and they took us to events, they flew us to PAX, they paid for the hotels, the living. It's like they they paid for something we weren't able to achieve, and they took us in front of the players. It was my first time in the USA, so also it was like I was terrified. I didn't know. I knew even less English than right now.
Mm.
And my first day at PAX was like a really big headache, like a crash course in English, and a lot of people with different accents, like hey, "What's up?" and something like that. It was really hard. But we got the opportunity to be in that kind of places because before making Constantly Watching, I didn't met any other developers. I was inside my room making games, and I was there and I met the other developers from Devolver. I met all the people in the Mega booth. There was a lot of good vibes and lots of things to learn from each other. And it was just not only the marketing part from Devolver that they allowed us to go into the game dev scene. We
Mhm.
made friends. We were into the game. It
Mhm.
was amazing.
Sure. Do you think that's the part of having a publisher that's most helpful, the moral support part? Because so many indie developers have told me, like, why would I want a publisher? They're just going to take my money and take credit for it, and they're going to be everyone's going to think they made it, and they're not going to know that it was me. So if I want to make stuff in the future, I'm going to be an unknown. Just like how no one knows who's making Mario games necessarily, or very few people pay attention. They just follow the publisher and the mascot. People want to avoid that, But I've always guessed that there must be something good about having a publisher, particularly if they're a great publisher like Devolver. So what do you think it is? What's the best thing about having a publisher like them?
I think I wouldn't like to make a game without a publisher ever,
Really?
because it's not just about them reaping the benefits of your game. It's like they handle all the boring shit, like talking to the digital distribution sites and managing the press, and they told you what you have to do, and you just can think of just making games. And I listen to really, really bad things from publishers, from friends that had bad experiences, like they didn't pay a shit, or they treated my game really bad, my image was damaged, or they didn't understand me. There was a lot of terrifying stories. So when I went with Evolver Digital, I thought like maybe a publisher. I had to experience that. Also it was Evolver Digital. It wasn't like nobody. I was a fan of the Evolver Digital before they contacted me, and then it was way better than I imagined. And I think that this is something that only happens with Volverita because they don't feel like a company. They're less like a group of guys who work into making games happen.
Mm.
And it really surprised me that we talk every week since they're doing the development, and they didn't ask me about the progress or anything. They asked me, "Are you happy? Do you need something? Are you okay? What can we do to make you happier?" And I really, really felt like I was being taken care. They were looking after me, not only in the means of making a game, but emotionally. And it was really, really, really surprising. And when I went to the PAX and meet all the gang there, and they hugged me, and it's like having friends who make your game produce a lot of money. So
Mm.
it's win-win. I don't see a problem with having a publisher, at least a publisher like this, because I heard really terrifying things from other people.
Sure. It all depends. Oh, well, that's great to hear, and I'm sure Devolver will be happy to hear that. Nigel and whatnot, they're great guys. They've managed to really make this brand with their publisher that people just immediately think when they hear Devolver, they think like gonna make me feel gross, but in a punk rock like. It's hard to punk rock is so played out in terms of what it means these days. It's such an old term, and it's got kind of a faux rebelliousness to it. But they're like legit. Like people hear Devolver and they're like, that is a brand that people are gonna like no matter what they end up doing. It's gonna be something that turns people on, I guess you could say. Neon colors and stuff. They make people feel a certain way. It's been pretty impressive to watch, and you've been a big part of that, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy I've been able to be part of that, and something great Devolver made. I don't know if that helps, like the kind of seal or feeling in all the games. But when we went to PAX, they made sure we hang out with each other, like gathering all the developers together, going to party together. They put us, every one of us, in the same room and gave us alcohol and food, and it was like become friends and just learn from each other, and it was really, 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 really good. And I think that kind of shared of experience also shapes you as a developer. And I think that they meant to, I don't know, this kind of family feel in the way they do things.
Sure. Yeah. They've created a culture of people having creative freedom, not worrying as much about whether this is going to be conventionally marketable, which in fact has made them marketable. I think that's what I was trying to say before. They've like taken unconventionalness and made it conventionally marketable in a way that I don't think they probably could have planned. They somehow just followed their passions and it worked. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I wanted to get more about what your influences were in general. Were there influences? Because you've made a game, unlike games that were probably even around when you were growing up.
Yeah.
And you've said a few times, like, that's not really the kind of game you enjoy so much. You enjoy more of the Contra, Metroid, Mega Man sort of stuff growing up. You look like to be in your 20s, so maybe those games are a little old for a young man such as yourself. But what were the games you liked growing up?
Well, I actually, when I was really, really little, I wasn't really skilled with platformers or something like that. And when I was very young, I liked most point and click games. like Monkey Island and Indiana Jones Adventures and something like that. But when I started to become more skilled, I switched to action games. But I always enjoy a good story. I don't like I don't like mindless killing. It doesn't even have to have a story in there, but a good mood. I like it. I like a game to have charisma and something like that. Make me feel things. But my favorite video game saga in all time is Metal Gear Solid. And actually, almost everything what Kojima makes, I love that. I love the way he makes games. I even love the cinematics. I love the endless cinematics, even if that's not a good game design decision, but I love them. I mean, I had a lot of discussions with people about this. Like, I understand objectively why cinematics aren't good for games, but I cannot help myself but love them. I feel them as a reward. Like, oh, here it comes, a 20-minute cinematic. I earned this. Give it to me, Kojima.
Do you like them in a lot of games or mostly just Kojima games?
I like it if the content is good, but I don't mind long cinematics. I see them as rewards actually. I like just getting into the story. I don't mind not pushing buttons all the time.
Sure.
Point and clicks games are actually a really long cinematic because there is no flow of action. It's just dialogues after dialogues, and every reward is just unlocking more content, which is more dialogues or videos.
Sure. No, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I never thought of that. And Dragon's Lair, of course, is just one big cinematic, but there's a charm to that. Huh. Yeah. So moving forward then, more action games, you think?
Come again, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Moving forward, do you think you'll be trying to focus more on action games, such as this Metroidvania game?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know if I'm going to focus on action games, but I'm sure that I want to make something that plays with a controller. It doesn't have to be an action games. I think I have some ideas of making narrative experiences, but feeling the weight of the player, because on point and click games the problem is that I don't feel as immersed as I'm pushing something, even if I'm not killing things. And I want to make a game that it's played with a controller because that's the games I play. Because since I started making games, when I end making games, I don't want to just minimize Game Maker and start playing another game. I want to get away from the computer, sit on the sofa and play something on my PlayStation or play something on Steam, but connected to the television. It feels like a console if I use big screen.
Sure.
So yeah, I want to make a game that feels with a controller. It's like I don't want to fit on a genre, but make a game which I can play on my sofa.
Right. And do you think Gods Will Be Watching will ever come to consoles?
I don't think so. We had some proposals of porting it to consoles, but it's a game that I don't think it's going to play good on a console because I wouldn't like to play it with a controller. It's like
Sure.
just an impediment, a handicap to play it with. It's hard enough just to think what you want to do if it's hard to do if you don't have.
Right. That makes sense. I can't believe questions came in. This is great. I did want to I messed up. I got distracted, I think, or just excited, or both. I was going to ask about the whole cinematic thing. What an interesting point you made, that people now hate cinematics or see them as bad design. But that, to me, has been sort of a backlash against the PlayStation 1 dawning of tons of cinematics, when people would say, I'll only play a game if it has tons of cinematics. I want it to be 4 discs or else I won't buy it. It's funny how that's happened. But we are going to have to skip that point for now because the questions happened. I wouldn't want to be rude to those people. Second round team asks, how will you handle distribution / marketing for your next game? Do you think it'll be with Devolver again, assuming Devolver wants to work on it? Would you plan on working with them next?
Yeah, exactly. If Devolver wants to still can make games with us, we're going to go with them because I don't know, I like them and I would like to make games with them forever. Like, I'm in love with them. And
That's so great. Do they
yeah.
know about this game that you're working on right now? And does the game have a name, the Metroidvania?
Uh,
Like a working prototype name?
Not yet. I think I'll do that in a brainstorming tomorrow. Ghostly Watching was like that too until the very last minute. Didn't have a game and name, and it was like, let's do a brainstorming in 30 minutes. And it was like, eat your friends in the snow or have a good time. It was really, really silly games until we got to the Ghostly Watching thing, and we don't even know the sense of the title. So, but
Really?
yeah,
Huh.
yeah. It, how
Yeah.
did it came with the idea of the name and what it means? And it's like, it was a brainstorming. I don't know.
To me, it meant, in case you're wondering, because I know you were
Yeah.
thinking, what does Jonathan think? That's what's important. I am the god when I'm playing it, and I am watching. But I feel if there is a god, because who knows? Hopefully there is. That God may be like the player of a video game in that they are me, like God would be in me, but also God is separate from me. So when I'm playing Solid Snake, I am Solid Snake until those moments when I'm not Solid Snake. And I'm telling Solid Snake to do a thing, but he does it in his own way. So it's him. I'm controlling him, but he is him. So I am watching me fail as taking on the bodies of these characters and feeling terrible, like I'm the worst god ever because I should have controlled all this in a way that would make it perfect for everybody. So like you could have called it God totally failed and you are God. That would have worked for me too. Anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it didn't mean something at the beginning, but I wanted to empower the kind of mystery because the game is full of MacGuffins. Like I didn't want to experience a lot of explicit things. If you take a look at it, the whole game goes about the freedom of aliens, and a single alien doesn't appear in the game. They always talking about the Federation. They're talking about a lot of things that doesn't appear in the game. They're just in your head, and I wanted to empower that. And when we released the Game Jam prototype, I like how the title of the game affected the feeling of the play because if it was called Sci-Fi Adventures, it didn't have any other psychologically things into there. But calling it Ghostly Watching was like making you ask yourself questions already. And I like that. And I try to put a lot of holes in the big game just to keep you making new questions and something like that. And that's one of my favorite theories about the title because I read the Steam forums and my favorite theory is about ourselves being the gods. And Barden, the main character, will be trapped into the game until the last player stops watching. So it's like God's really watching, and this universe will exist and will repeat its failures again and again until nobody's playing.
Huh. I didn't realize that I had already that other people shared my perspective or even had a more interesting, more detailed version of that perspective. How fun. How fun we have feeling terrible. And how safe it is to feel bad in a video game as opposed to having to feel bad in real life. And I hope you, before I forget, is there any chance you will do that DLC about the team working on the game? Because that would be great.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going. I don't want to make anything related with Godly watching anymore in my life. The DLC is almost done, and it's 20 years after the events that happened on the main game, and we're going to release that to just give closure to the story and thing. And after that, I'm not going to make anything about Godly watching in my life, even if I'm poor and something puts a lot of money in my face. I'm not. Well, I don't want to make more Godly watching. I don't want to.
You're done with that. It's funny. I was Tommy Reffinus, who did Super Meat Boy, programmed it. He was eating pizza a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Will you ever port Super Meat Boy to anything else?" And he's like, "I won't even click on the file." That's how done I am with Super Meat Boy. Never again. Though you never know. It's been a long time. Maybe he'll come back to it after the feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about the creative thing. Like I don't like the product or something. When I open Game Maker and I open the project of Forgotten Watching, I recall all the bad things that happened during the development, and it's really hard. It's not just about being a good game or not. When you are so deeply intertwined with the development of a game, it opens your wounds, and you don't want to get back to it anymore.
Yeah, big time. I don't think people understand how, again, the game, it sounds like it was a similar thing that happened with you and God's Will Be Watching as Edmund and Tommy with Super Meat Boy. That game it felt like they were slaves to it. It traumatized them. It made them feel completely powerless. Unless they somehow managed to make this thing happen, they were going to end up starving to death or homeless or both. That's how rough it can be. Ugh.
Yeah.
You did it though. I'm so happy you did it. Yeah. Danny Dander Art. What a cool name that is. AART is how he spells art. Asks, is there currently a technical limitation that keeps you from making a certain concept you would totally make if you knew how? Yes, and this is a kind of a version of the you had endless resources, endless budget question that I sometimes ask folks. So is there a game you wish you could make but can't due to technical limitations?
Well, I don't know. After making so many games, it's like my mind is stuck into a 2D world, and I would love to be able of thinking in 3D and lighting and a lot of that kind of things. But again, I think that kind of power would spoil me because too many budget or too many possibilities is like it just rottens my mind. It's really awful. And I like being small and trying to. It's like limits empower creativity. Like, what can I make with these small resources? Anyway, when I started making games, what I wanted to make was a sandbox with procedurally generated drama. Like it was a western, and I was designing this algorithm where it spawned not only cities but relationships without the people who live in there. Like the daughter of the major is in love with the bootlegger who lives inside this mine, and it was really big scope. And I still dream someday I will be able to make that. Maybe someday I'm that skilled that it's not that a huge challenge, or I have a bigger team or something. I see it doable. I don't see it impossible, but it would involve an insane amount of time, and I'm sure I would end up hating the game.
Well, that's the curse. It's funny, Eric Ford, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, he worked on a game called Social Justice Warriors, which is a similar single room sort of game as yours, but a whole different kind of feel bad that happens. He's been working on wanting to do a procedurally generated storyline for a while, where the NPCs have as much narrative, have as much autonomy, have as much agency as the player would, and would change in reaction to that. And the story is more about them than about you. Maybe you'll talk with him someday. He's a neat guy. He goes to PAXs. Yeah, I'm sure you two would get along very well. SSEFV, which whenever I see an SS and a V, I want to see Super Street Fighter 5. It's like where my brain immediately goes, but I doubt that's what that stands for. Sesev asks, I'm also Spanish. Do you have any specific advice for being about a game designer in Spain? And oh my God, I knew there was something I was forgetting. In the post for this on Destructoid, I said I would specifically ask what the game design scene is like in Spain. So yes, any advice for game developers from Spain, and any comments, questions, points you want to make about game design in Spain versus here?
Yeah, I think it's not about being on Spain. It's about just making games. I find a lot of people at game events in Spain, and it was a lot of people trying to make big games or commercial projects, or trying to make a living on right off the bat of making games. And making games is as easy as just making them. And it's like try to make a game you can do in a weekend. And if you can do that, you will be able to make a game that has a week of development, and then a month, and then going bigger and bigger. Or just make a lot of little games, and because I think there is still no good theory or academicism for making games yet. It's more like alchemy, and I feel like the best way to learn to make games is just failing a lot. And it's better just to fail in a lot of little games that failing in a 2-year development and they're having to pack all everything and just shutting the curtain. But yeah, I don't think it matters where you. I mean, if you are in the USA, you have access to a lot of really cool events and going to the GDC or PAX or a lot of great things. Here in Spain, we have it more difficult. We have Madrid Games Week or Game that are cool events, but you're not like in the big scene, like where all the cool developers are in the USA right now for me.
Huh.
But yeah, just make games. Yeah.
Do you know any other developers in Spain, like locally?
Yeah, there are a lot of developers, and it grew really fast. When we started making Totally Watching, we went to this Madrid Games Week event, which is like a AAA event with Call of Duties, with 3 hours of queue and something like that, and FIFA and stuff. Um, the first year we attended that, we were a really small booth, and we were 7 developers with a table which only fitted a laptop, and we were like being against each other, just 7 developers.
Mm.
And the next year we were 60 in a really big area. It's just like game development sprawl. Like it's seeing a lot of big growing in Spain, and it's bigger and bigger every year. You start seeing communities online and a lot of cool people to work with. And yeah, I know a lot of developers. Actually, there are a lot of cool developers in my city, and I don't know if it's something contagious or something like that. Like you start making games, and someone else says like, "I want to make games too," and if you can do it, I can do it myself too, and that starts becoming contagious to, all over the territory.
Huh. That's awesome. I don't know a ton about Spanish culture, about culture in Spain. Are video games a big part of your culture? Do a lot of people like them? Is it considered mainstream to like them, or do people kind of still frown on someone who plays a lot of video
Yeah.
games, think that they're socially strange or whatnot?
It's okay to play video games, mostly big games. All the events focusing to the public and so are just focused on the last big 3 games or something like that. There is not a lot of indie game culture. Actually,
Mm.
if you want to make a living out of your games in Spain, you're not going to make it because for us, Godly Watching has sold. It's about 0.4% of the sales of the game. So it's just really small amount. And it's funny because a lot of people who I find they tell me, "Yeah, I played the game," and it's like, or I'm meeting every single player of the game, or all these people just download it from the PA.
Or I suppose they could have pirated it as well.
Yeah, I think there is a huge amount of piracy in Spain. That we
Sure.
have that culture.
Yeah. That makes sense. So is it mostly like consoles that are big, or is it a lot of PC gaming, or a mix?
There is a huge amount of players in its group, but I think there are a lot of players, but not a lot of people who pays for
Uh-huh.
playing. So
Yeah.
that's a big issue right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hmm. Well, it's been great. Is there anything we'd missed? Is there anything you wanted to? We still have quite a bit of time actually, and I have other things I wanted to ask, but I feel like I've been pushy this week and also a little scrambled. Is there anything you were hoping that we would talk about that we hadn't gotten to yet?
Well, I don't know if I have my brains really melted down because of working
Yours
that
too?
hard. Yeah,
No way. I'll give you some positive reflections. You have not seemed melted down at all. You have been quick and insightful, even witty. It's been great.
I think it's because all the caffeine I've been drinking.
That'll certainly help. I probably should have
Yeah.
drank more myself. I pretty much work 7 days a week, so I got very little downtime. I played Hotline Miami actually for like 20 minutes yesterday, and that was like my big vacation. That was like restfulness. Sinistar has a point. He says you could revisit the cutscene reward discussion from before. I don't know. Yeah, maybe that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way too? I don't know if you're around the same age as me. I'm gonna guess you at least 10 years younger because I'm 38. But growing up, I saw this huge shift from, of course, because technology didn't allow it. There were no real cutscenes in games, but even a point-and-click game, people would be like fascinated with just seeing those old LucasArts games talking to each other for a while. And I don't know if you know this, we actually had one of the creators of the term cutscene on the show not that long ago, Ron Gilbert. Everyone should go watch that. It's pretty amazing. I know, it's pretty neat. And he had no idea it was going to turn into like a Kojima style
Mm.
selling point where Kojima, the first Metal Gear Solid, like people bought that and played it just because they knew it was going to have long cinematics. And then there was this weird backlash against that. And I wonder if Gods Will Be Watching has suffered any of that backlash. Like people saying, I'm sick of games that are just about watching stuff happen as opposed to constantly being involved in action. So, yeah, any thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, I think I'm a cutscene lover, and I'm a lover of content games. I love long dialogues and getting immersed into the lore of the game and knowing things about the game. And I don't think Totally Watching had that kind of backslash because nobody complained about that. They were really
Okay.
busy complaining about how the game sucked and it was too hard on Blake and so. But I wrote a lot of things into that game, and there are a lot of details into the conversations of the characters. Actually, the DLC it has also almost half the amount of the entire game of dialogues. I wrote a lot because the people who enjoyed the game they were really fond of the dialogues and the content and extensive going deeper into the minds of the characters and so. And yeah, when I was designing the original experience, I was trying to limit that part because I felt that it could be boring for some kind of players that just wanted to jump into the puzzle and solve it, and it could drive you away just to you have a lot of numbers on your head, and then someone starts speaking about how he feels about his relationship with somebody, and just everything fucks up. But for the DLC, I just ignored that and tried to please the most hardcore fans supposedly watching. And there are fucking ton of dialogues. I spent weeks writing, just writing, 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 and writing. It's going to cost a lot in localization. I'm sorry, Devolver. and, and yeah, I like that. And since I don't have a lot of pressure with the DLC because it's going to be free, I'm empowering that part that I like
Ah,
games. Um, and I don't know. I think that provided that there are enough of players who still love cutscene or that kind of content, there is going to be a place for games to develop a lot in that kind of not pure game design experience.
sure.
I don't know
I,
if it's a matter of taste. I think the golden rule in game design is like if something makes you feel good, it's working. It's good
mm,
game design.
mm.
And I don't know if there's such thing as objectively way of speaking about game design. There's just type of players.
Yeah, yeah. There's some big book about the science of beauty. I've been meaning to track it down. I've seen it. It's like this thick, and it's
Wow.
created by artists and scientists and mathematicians. And they look at, how architecture, for whatever reason, there is uh, buildings that are just mostly seen as beautiful. And of course, not everybody likes them, but for whatever reason, they click with most human minds as recognized as beautiful or impressive or artistic. So there is some laws and rules to making something that's objectively good in art,
Yeah,
but
but
there
I,
also isn't. Yeah,
I differ in that part because a building making a lot of people feel good is the same as Justin Bieber making a lot of people feel good. It's not
mm,
a matter of numbers. It's
yeah,
like a lot of people agree that Justin Bieber sucks, but there is even more people who loves him. So
sure.
Justin
Well,
Bieber
I
is
would,
beautiful.
but what about like Justin Bieber? The difference with Bieber, the Bieber difference is that he has a huge marketing team and he is like a young, attractive dude. So like he just strikes upon a lot of people's reproductive instincts. They just see him and they want to make love to him. So it's not as opposed to like classical music where they didn't have marketing teams and whatnot. And there's certain classical music that people just hear it and they're like, this is objectively good music. And then there's other classical music that some people think is objectively good, but not as many people like. And I'm with you in saying that there is no objective measure, but I don't know if it's as simple as that. There seems to be something
Yeah, I mean, I
that
think I can
causes.
acknowledge if something is objectively good. Like I acknowledge, for example, I recently went to the cinema and saw 2001: Space Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
I hated it. I didn't like it.
Really?
It was really, really boring. I almost fell asleep a couple of times. It was awful for me. But objectively, I acknowledge it's a good movie, and I respect what it tries to do, and I respect the people who enjoys it, and I see it as a good cultural piece. It's really, really good. And it's something strange because I acknowledge it, I respect it as something good, but I
Mm.
hate it. I had a really bad time. I don't want to see it again in my life.
Oh, sure.
Um,
I think it's a matter of compatibility. There's certain games that are going to meet with you and you're going to connect with them in a way that feels really good, even if they're technically flawed in a lot of ways. Like Hotline Miami, Technically, there's so many flaws in that game, but they're part of why I connect with it, and you might feel the same way. But I'm just mad that you're not going to be able to connect with your own stuff. I did want to ask before we moved on from it too much. Is it at least different with the Gods Will Be Watching DLC? Like now that it seems like making that felt different. Do you enjoy that more than the? No, you don't.
It's been awful. It's been like all the time I've been making the DLC. For me, it was like, why the fuck am I doing this? I didn't learn from my mistake. Why the hell am I doing this? I just could go on Twitter and say like, hey guys, DLC is not going to happen because we feel like it's not going to add anything, and just invent whatever excuse we wanted. But no, we had to go there and make the fucking DLC, and it's been awful. And
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to laugh at your pain.
no,
But it's
it's
just
funny.
amazing.
It's funny for me too. It's okay.
Yeah, good to hear. So you're not making games for yourself. The games themselves are not being made for you to play. I'm hoping that a lot of the time you enjoy the process. That initial inspiration moment is amazing, as anyone who creates stuff knows. So at least I'm guessing you enjoy that part. But it doesn't sound like you're not making the games for you to play, and you're not necessarily making them thinking that, oh, this is exactly what other people like. Like you're not trying to be the Justin Bieber of video games and just make this huge crowd pleaser either. Yeah. What if not for you, and if not for all of them necessarily, what do you think's driving you to keep making them?
I think the feeling of falling in love the first time you think of a game idea and you try to make it is really, really powerful and really rewarding, and makes me feel really powerful things. I think I didn't experience that with any other thing in my life. There is a part in the middle of making a game where you just stop being creative and you just become a robot that push buttons and wants the thing to become something. And after you start recovering from that part, it's amazing just having something finished, the feeling of achievement, a really huge achievement. I did never in my life did something that felt so rewarding as Godly Watching. Even if a lot of people was insulting me, it was like I made a fucking pyramid here with my own hands. It's just a really huge thing, and that feeling is really, really good. And I think that even if most of the time it sucks, I think that 70% of the time it's like, oh, I don't want to work anymore. This is fucking endless jobs. This is, everything is pain. I don't recall why I'm doing this. Just a bit good things. It makes you feel something that I didn't experience myself in my life. It's better than any kind of thing that ever went through my organism. So I will just keep making games to get that dopamine rush I long for.
So the initial creation phase, awesome. The brainstorming phase, oh my God, I can't believe I had this idea. Where did this come from? And then getting it out, then looking at it and being like, this really came out of my brain. And then the terribleness of like having to make it, clicking on the thing, then the monotony of it, but then once it all takes shape and you've like made this baby of a video game and you get to know it and you see that it's real. Yeah, that's the good stuff.
It's amazing.
That's so good. I have this strong feeling that you're going to be making these darn video games for a while.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad that you're doing it. What are we? Oh, we're 2 minutes left. Let's see. I did want to force you out of because I know you don't want to fail the audience. You can't fail them. They want 2 good minutes. They want these next minutes to be like the best minutes of the show. So we're going to brainstorm the name of your video game, whether you like it or not.
That's nice.
And then you don't have to use it, of course.
Yeah, I'm going to use it. Fuck it. It's a game jam. I'm going to use it.
Yeah, you're doing it. This is productive. You're back in Ludum Dare now, except now I'm on your development team.
Nice. That's more of work. Yeah.
The official namer consultant. So it's miners, it's 3 weapons, and it's acoustic feel. But like you said before, you don't want to like be too on the nose with the name. You want to leave it so there's spaces for people's imagination to fill in what the name means in relation to the game. So now we're doing it. All right.
The one thing I think is really important for the name is like the people who is on the planet is collecting things on the bottom of the planet to build a rocket and go outside of the planet. It's a story about escape. It's a story about liberation. Maybe it's some parallelism with my own life right now, but it's a story about gathering things and evolving yourself, improving yourself through new tools and new abilities and understanding the environment. And then when you gathered all this kind of experience and you mastered the insides of the earth, you are allowed to go into the space. So what kind of name can we give to that experience?
Sure. So interesting. Before we move to that, you're called Deconstructeam, and were you looking to deconstruct games? Is that the reason you came up with that name?
Yeah, it's like Go Truly Watching. Go Truly Watching sounds really, really good, but it doesn't have any merit making that kind of name. Deconstructeam, it's called like that because the first game jam, the first Ludundare I ever made, I made a game that it was called Deconstructeam. So it's like Sonic Team. It's yes.
How interesting, because I do see Gods Will Be Watching as a deconstruction of kind of the core tenets of point and clicks.
Yeah, I think like as Gods Will Be Watching affects the experience of the game, being named the Construct Team is affecting my way of making games. It's like I put a title on myself and it's affecting myself. And I really think about the constructing things, and it was like retroactive. It wasn't because of that, but it's affecting me. You spend 3 years making games with that name and it sticks into you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you just, that makes a lot of sense. Well, we didn't even get to do the brainstorm, though. Sinistar came up with an awesome name in the text, Escape Velocity. That's an excellent
Escape Velocity. I like it. It's going to be like that.
Yeah, it will, at least just as the name Deconstructeam has influenced everything you've done. The name Escape Velocity, whether you use it or not, is going to influence the way you think about the naming. So Sinistar is officially part of your development team. People can follow you and Deconstructeam on Twitter, if I'm correct.
Yep.
How do they do that?
They can look for Deconstructing because you've been telling the name wrong all the time. It's Deconstructing altogether, not Deconstruction Team.
Sorry about that. Deconstructeam. Yes.
Deconstructing altogether. Yeah.
I've been bad at talking today. And they can find your game on Steam, though they have to go through an age gate in order to even look at it, kids. Yeah, that's how mature this game is. You better go buy it right now. If you want to be a grown-up for a change, go play Gods Will Be Watching today. As for me, I'm at TronNots on Twitter. You can watch this show later on YouTube, youtube.com/SupHolmesShow, and you can listen to it on Libsyn and iTunes. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.